Hey everyone, this is Robert, and thank you for tuning in to the Station Square podcast. So today, um, as you can see, we already have this lovely gentleman in the corner. Would you like to actually? You can see his name. It's Josh Putnam. You may have known him on many Funimation shows, Crunchyroll, and what have you. But yeah, thank you so much for joining today. And yeah, anything that you want to say to the audience out there?
Thank you for having me, and just this the whole experience so far in anime and whatnot has been a trip, and thank you, everybody.
Yep, absolutely. Got to change this. But yeah, I guess with all of that said, what have people like yeah, just share some of your roles that you've done so far and where can people find you on at
uh,
this time?
so most notably, I'm known for playing the villain in Seppuku Bisco, named Kurakawa, and also the one of the main antagonists in Dawn of the Witch, named the Tyrant. Um, and I've got my website, Josh Putnam VO. .wixsite.com/home, which I need to update that so it just without the Wix site. But I'm also on Twitter and Instagram at Kenpo KHENPOE, and on Facebook at /Josh Putnam VO. Um, and yeah, I've done anime, video games, and audiobooks, original animations, just pretty much the whole shebang. And I'm hoping to get everything rolling and get some more roles in this year. I've got a few things in the pipeline, so hopefully you'll see those soon.
Nice. So yeah, let's get started with this. So was VO always something that you wanted to do since you were a kid? Did you have like other like I guess career like avenues or like any other paths that you wanted to pursue before getting your start into voice acting? Like, what's your
Yeah,
story?
yeah. So that's a good question. I when I was really young, there's obviously like the things that a lot of kids like think of, like, oh, I want to be an astronaut or this or that, the other thing. I For a time I wanted to be a veterinarian, but that was like a couple years until I was like, oh, I'd have to take a knife to animals, and I don't want to have to do that. And so it's like I like animals too much to be able to do that. And then I wanted to get into photography for a while, which I still like to dabble in now and again as a hobby. But it was uh, after I got out of high school, I was helping my family out financially, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I'd done some small acting stuff in school here and there, but uh, didn't really click with me. But I'd always loved anime and cartoons and video games. Like I grew up with Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon, and I grew up with things like Ed, Ed and Eddie and other cartoons on Cartoon Network. And I
Good taste.
yeah, I started doing some stuff on YouTube, and it like I was like, oh, okay, this is what voiceover is. And it was uh such like an awesome connection between myself and the audience, where it was like, okay, I'm really connecting with people through it. And I started to put together in my mind, it's like, oh, I'd always been doing this with the cartoons and anime and video games that I've been watching or playing, um connecting to those characters and connecting to the actors through the roles. So it was cool to see it on the other end, and so I just started pursuing it full time from there. Um, and it's been a bit of a slog because there's been life gets in the way. But I'm in a good place now, and I'm excited for the future.
Yeah, what were some of the first, like, I guess, acting gigs that you've done?
So I did a few indie video games with uh it was I'm not sure if they're still doing anything. I can't remember the name of the studio, but they did Perceptions of the Dead 1 and 2 on Steam, and they also did The Ice Cream Man. I played the main villain in The Ice Cream Man, and then also I played the character Marcus in both the Phantom games 1 and 2. Um, and uh those were my first like paying roles, and they didn't pay a lot, but I loved the character, and I loved the game, and I saw a few people playing it here and there, and it was fun. um but uh my first major role was probably Kurakawa, because he was my first named anime role, and first like series like season long character. So
Nice. So, how much would you say that, like, I usually ask this on the podcast, but in your opinion, because I know you've been doing this for about over 10-ish years, so how much
mhm.
would you say that the industry, like, especially these last 3 years, how much would you say that, like, everything has evolved, or what are some of the biggest changes that you've noticed in the voiceover industry from
so,
when you first started out and up to now?
so when I was first starting out, we were I think the industry was coming out of the 90s 2000s mentality, um of how things are done as far as dubbing goes, and into the more modern side of things. And I think it's more because the technology was starting to catch up, and so studios were able to um, do more things. Um, and as far as the past 3 years, that's been like a whole different ball of wax, because like with a couple of the things I did with Funimation, like Cautious Hero and Kimono Michi, like we were in the old studio, and then and I had a few things with them planned out for the pandemic, um, before it was the pandemic, and then um, I went ahead and I had some other things with some other people, but then when that hit, everything stopped cold turkey, and everybody was trying to figure everything out. It was oh, who has a remote setup, who has quality setup, et cetera, et cetera. um, Thankfully I did. I didn't get to do much for the first bit of the pandemic. My roommate was doing a lot of stuff, but then I got the audition for Bisco, sent that in, got offered the role of Kurakawa, and all of Kurakawa was recorded in my booth. Same setup as this one, but we were actually in another apartment at the time. And then after Kurakawa came Tyrant, and at that point we were back in studio, but um, we were all taking super careful precautions. Like everybody had to make sure they were vaccinated. They didn't have any symptoms, et cetera, et cetera. We all use our voices, and COVID attacks the respiratory system. So if you get it, it's kind of a bad deal.
Oh, absolutely. As somebody who has dealt with COVID, like back in August last year, I can definitely attest to, yeah, because like if you lose your voice, that is, oh boy, that
Mm,
is not really good because like, I mean, unless if you, I mean, I know that directors can be understanding, being flexible and whatnot, but like if a project has a really specific deadline and it's like, oh boy, how can I work my way around this? And then there's also, taking classes and workshops
Mm.
and all of that stuff. So I ended up not only did I catch COVID, I ended up also contracting strep throat, which
Oh.
is ouch. And somehow I still managed to do a class where I did like a character, like I did this bird who and I did that with the strep throat. So you can imagine I'm just to this day, I'm just really thankful that I didn't like, I'm still here. I didn't pass out or anything. So,
Hmm.
but it's like at the end of the day, I mean, I think any voice actor can really relate to this, but it's like even under the worst circumstances, you can make this work somehow.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
like if you have to suffer for, your art or artistry or stuff, I don't know, but
Hmm. Yeah.
but don't follow my example. I'm just saying this right now.
I know.
Definitely rest, take breaks. Just don't be like me, because
I,
I was a fool for thinking I could actually do it, and I somehow did. Never doing it again, though.
yeah, definitely got to take care of your voice. I know a lot of people
Exactly. Yeah.
who have unfortunately contracted COVID, and like typically it's if they have a series regular character, it's like, okay, if you have a remote setup, we'll work with you. Just get some tea going, and we'll do your best to get you through it. But then if you're slated to come in for an extra character, it's like, we'll get you next time, but it's a character in the background. We can get somebody else that's around your range. It's like, all right, fair enough.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about, uh, the projects that you've done, over
Mhm.
the years. I know you kind of named a couple, but I know this is kind of like asking what's your favorite kid, but any particular roles or any projects that you've done that you hold have such fondness for, and which ones would you say were some of the most, let me see, what were the most fulfilling and what were some of the most challenging, vocally or just mentally? Like, what are some of the hardest and some of the most fun roles that you've done over the years and projects as well? Yeah.
So, um, one of the ones that I've done recently, that was really fun, um, and I hope it gets picked up as a full show, is I did the voice of Frank the Chicken for the pilot of Best Friends Forever Stranded, and it was really fun for me because it was my first original video animation. I've done other video animations where it's like based on Roblox or what have you, but this was like completely original. So I invented the character fully, and uh, it it was so fun because the what I ended up basing it on is, I talked about my love of Ed and Eddie, and the character is neurotic and book smart, but he's also a little quick to anger. So I kind of made him a bit of Eddie and a bit of Double D, and put that together. And I've talked to friends about that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I can hear it now that you pointed it out," and so that's really fun. Um, as far as other roles, I'd be remiss if I didn't say Kurokawa, because again, first named anime role. So even though he wasn't the main character, he was, one of the main characters of the show because he was the main villain, and he drove the plot. And uh, he was just so fun because he was just that classic evil, like, I want to take over the world kind of thing, and I think I'm holier than thou. And it was just so fun to play off of everybody else. And I remember when I got the role announced, Kyle, who plays Bisco, we nerded out through DMs on Twitter, and both got really into the series. I still read the light novels, um, and so yeah, that's really big. Um, and I really like my voice role in Smite. Base Demon Raijin, because that was a pandemic job, and that was really cool. It was real weird, but it was real cool because I got the role, and I didn't know, like, I was like, oh, I didn't don't know what I did to get this role, because Smite is one of those things where you audition for a whole bunch of characters and might get one, but you probably won't because there's a lot of them. Um, and I got this one. I had to go to the studio during the pandemic, so it was like, go straight to the booth, wear your mask, wear gloves, don't talk to anybody. Once you get into the booth, then you can take off your mask and we'll record. So it was little surreal, but it was still a fun experience as well. So
Yeah, right on, man. So I also wanted to ask you um, because I know I've seen your website and I've looked at some of the teachers that you've coached with, the training that you got. So I'm just kind of curious, what is your, like, I don't want to say methods, but how do you get into character? And what are some of the best pieces of advice that kind of stuck out to you, um,
uh
so far? And
so
you can also say um who are some of the people that have really helped you along the way that you've,
yeah,
still take to heart to this day. So yeah, you also want to shout out a few people, that's totally fine with me.
yeah. So all of the teachers that I've had classes with have taught me one thing or another. Um, I think two of the biggest ones were Richard Horvitz and Andrea Toyas. Uh, Richard obviously needs no introduction, but Andrea, she's um, the casting director and vocal director at Blizzard, has been for many, many, many years, and uh, they both teach a very similar approach, but also different in their own way. And it's I won't go into heavy detail, but it's basically you just have to make sure that you read what the client is putting into the material in terms of, okay, what's this character's, motivations, and age, and all these different things that might affect it, and then think about, okay, what in my life could connect to that closest, and try and tap into that. It's kind of method acting kind of stuff, but um and it's not for everybody, because uh with some characters it can make you go to dark places that you don't want to have to visit, but at the same time it's very therapeutic for some, like myself. Like if there's an angry character or what have you, where I just get to yell or be something that I'm not, and get just a whole bunch of stuff off my shoulders, like, I can do that. And that's one of the things that attracted me to acting originally anyway, too, is just uh the escapism. Like, I'm I recently found out in the last year and a half, 2 years, that I'm neurodivergent myself, and um uh masking is a big part of that, and acting is technically masking, only professionally. um and uh and so it's kind of one of those things where I'm just like, okay, I already have a little bit of this, and I can apply it. I just need to be able to apply it correctly for different situations, and I can use that for acting.
Yeah, I totally can relate to that. Neurodivergent, like this kind of does bring me to the next question. I noticed that there's been more of a push towards, authenticity in the world of VO. So what are your 2 cents on that?
Oh, I'm all for it. Both in the sense of, um, we need better grounded reads, and obviously there's characters and shows that are going to be over the top and cartoony and whatnot, but um something like Bisco, where it's such a high fantasy kind of thing, it's also very much Japan in a post-apocalyptic world, and everybody's trying to vie for uh, vie for power, and that's one of Kurokawa's biggest things. And but he feels like he's always in control, and so he always sounds like he's in control, and his voice is very much like that. Um, and so you want to make sure that your characters are based in reality, and the other parts of that are we need to make sure that uh, there's representation in roles that need it. Like if a role is very much like, hey, this character is um, identifies a certain way in terms of their gender identity or what have you, uh, somebody of that gender identity can give more pathos to the character than not. Just like somebody who is Asian or Black or Latino can give something to a character that is that and has that history of their character to pull on. Um, Obviously, like not every character who is one way or another is going to have the same experience as another, and so there's a little bit of leeway here and there, but for the most part we having that representation, like it's gonna be so much better because you see so many people talking about the fact that you know oh hey, my kid saw Miles Morales in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and went out and got a Miles Morales costume, didn't show any interest in Spider-Man before this, or what have you. Like there's so many different stories out there. Um, but yeah, it's really cool to see different actors uh being so happy with their roles because they're able to represent themselves and other people like them.
Yep, absolutely, man. And it's like it's really funny, and it's really just a good thing that you mentioned Miles Morales because you have no idea how many um there's so many people that I've met and come across that said that they had no interest in Spider-Man, but then they saw like Into the Spider-Verse, which is really groundbreaking when you think about it. And
Mm-hmm.
it was it uses a unique style. Like I'm noticing that a lot of animation studios are starting to go with this more like um mixing 2D and 3D, like this more anime look to it. Like I know
Mm-hmm.
recently with the new DreamWorks films, they're starting to incorporate that style, which is really nice. I really do like it a lot with a
Mm-hmm.
more I guess looser cartoony feel, but not like in your face. So I
Yeah, I
just
think
really appreciate that, they're starting to push more into like this. Okay, like we've been getting a lot of films that focus on like the hyper, like the realistic realism look, but it's nice to go like, more. I mean, because it's I mean, I personally think that it could be easier and you can have a lot more creative liberty with what you could do with the character animation. And also, too, like, it's just more fun to watch, in my
yeah,
opinion. Yeah.
they're it's the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, they started doing what they call animating on the twos, which
Yeah.
is skipping every other frame, and it makes it feel more like a comic or more like a cartoon, hand animated cartoon, and it's really cool. And yeah, Puss in Boots definitely
Oh, man. Yeah.
tried doing that,
Yeah.
and uh and like and yeah, there's a definitely still a market for like more realistic stuff. Like when I saw How to Train Your Dragon 2 and 3, I was like, the lighting in this looks on par with lighting in other fantasy movies like Lord of the Rings. Like this is beautiful. um and it fit that. But yeah, there's different animations for different occasions.
Totally. So what were some of the other shows that you've watched? Like, you can name shows, video games, like
Yeah.
any piece of media that also inspired you as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I complimented you on your shirt. Yu-Gi-Oh was a big thing growing up. Joey was my favorite character. And and my me and my best friend, we went back and forth because in terms of dueling, because his favorite character was Yugi, and we played all the time. And yeah, so Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, basically anything on Kids WB, and Toonami. My favorite anime of all time, that really got me into anime. I mean, I had watched Pokemon before that, I think, but the thing that really got me into it was Outlaw Star. It's still my favorite to this day. And uh, like, I'd love to be able to play a character like Gene, where there's a lot going on there, and they have a big character arc, but also like just the smarmy too cool for school attitude, like I kind of like those characters just because they're so much not me. I'm such a quiet nerd that like this is just one of those things where it's like, oh hey, that'd be a cool thing to try out, try playing. But yeah, basically anything that was on Toonami, Dragon Ball, Rurouni Kenshin, Tenchi Muyo, all that stuff. I watched, SWAT Cats, Ed and Nettie, uh, and I watched Johnny Bravo, the Rugrats, just really any cartoon I could get my hands on. I was watching, to the point where I was getting into my teenage years and still watching all these cartoons. And my dad's like, "Why don't you watch some reality shows or whatever, or stuff with live people?" I was like, "There's nothing good on," and there wasn't. It was all just reality show garbage. So the only thing that clicked with me at any point, live action wise, around that time, I think, was Mythbusters. But again, it was nerdy. So but yeah, that's a lot of stuff that I grew up on. And yeah, I do watch more live stuff nowadays. Like during the pandemic, I binged all of Parks and Rec, which is definitely my favorite office style show. Which I also binged The Office before it. So I can say between the two, I definitely like Parks and Rec more. Which I'm gonna upset the Office crowd. Um, uh, but then right now me and my roommates are into Ted Lasso, which is just the best. And Mythic Quest is great too. But yeah, and I'm still watching anime. One of my favorites recently was uh, one of my favorites recently, but now I can't remember the name. It was the one with the rock that absorbs into the boy in like the Arctic, and then he starts traveling around the world. Um, and like, or no, absorbs into his dog, and then he absorbs into the boy. Um, but I can't remember. Anyway, somebody will know what I'm talking about. My that's that's my ADHD brain. I can't bring it. Like, I'm like, oh, I loved it so much, and now I can't think of it. But yeah, I'm also watching things like Attack on Titan and whatnot too as well. Just a whole bunch of great shows right now. Too many because I can't keep up.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm the same way. I think when I was a kid, I used to watch like, the fast, I think guess like the fast paced like, comedy, like the comedic shows like, SpongeBob or Fairly Odd Parents,
Mm-hmm.
Rugrats, Jimmy Neutron and those shows. And
Mm.
then as I got older, and then I started, I mean, of course, I did watch Ed and Eddie and Dexter's Lab and, all that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
as I got older, I started watching shows that are more like, how can I say this? They're the shows that are well known for their, because I've always loved storytelling. That's always been in my, flesh and blood since I was a wee little lad. So, of course, Avatar, Batman,
Oh
those
yeah.
shows that are just also very groundbreaking and also
Mm-hmm.
show that they can have like they can appeal to kids as much as adults. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the charm that what made the original, like when you watch something like Looney Tunes or the old
Mm-hmm.
Disney shorts or even Rocky and Bullwinkle and all those classic cartoons
Oh yeah.
that are for all ages, because for kids you can enjoy the wacky misadventures, and then when you're an adult you really start appreciating the the clever writing and just the brilliant brilliant animation, and then
Mm-hmm.
and also just characterizations and just the stories, just like to this day I still think that Avatar has some of the most consistent and the most um like well-written storylines that I've seen in any piece of media in general. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
granted, there are successors out there, and there have been, um, I mean, I know that Avatar has made an impact on the industry. Like, I know there's shows that are starting to go into the that incorporate the storytelling and also the characters, like with these world building and just everything that Avatar had done so well. And I know that we're getting shows now, like I know everybody's been joking about it, the Dragon Prince on Netflix, which is the successor to Avatar. So I know everybody's been saying it, but I'm just gonna throw this out there. But to me, I don't think like as much as I really don't want to admit this, like you just really can't fix what wasn't broken. Like Avatar just really set the foundation, and it was just near flawless with what it did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just this rare lightning in a bottle quality that you just can't really replicate.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible. I mean, you can try, but it's gonna be really tough. Trust me.
Yeah, and I binged Avatar again during the pandemic, and
Oh,
it
same.
like, and
It
it's
just
amazing how
it's mind
bingeable
blowing.
of a show it is, even though it
Yeah.
wasn't set up as binge material. Um,
Yeah.
and uh, and Dave Filoni, who worked on that, went on to do Clone Wars, and I also binged all of that as well. Um, and then watched Rebels because I hadn't been caught up on Rebels. And I was like, all right, well, the last season of Rebels is hitting online soon, so I'll get through all of Clone Wars because I think I dropped off like about halfway through because of like dropping TV, and then during that time like stuff wasn't online really. Um, but anyway, so yeah, I watched all of that. It was brilliant. I'm super into the Star Wars stuff too. Like I just finished the Blast of Mando, and yeah, Filoni's still got it. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, and also Animaniacs. I gotta bring
mm,
that up because
yep,
that was also a huge, like, I guess comedic influence on how, it shaped my sense of humor and stuff. So
yep,
I just gotta mention that.
yeah.
Um,
Animaniacs and Freakazoid were huge for
oh,
me.
dude,
Yeah,
yes. Also, I don't think I've hung up the posters, but I just went to WonderCon last month and I actually met like Tom Ruger, Paul Rogg, and
nice.
the some of the crew that have worked on those shows, and they're incredibly nice.
Yeah.
I would love to have them on at some point in the future. Fingers
Mm-hmm.
crossed. So, yeah, it was just those are just really fun shows. I've just been also binge watching those. Like, I've been on a '90s kick, so I'm like, you know what? Let's just do it. So why not? Oh, and totally not sponsored on Shark Robot. I don't know if so many people are gonna get distracted by this
Right.
throughout this thing. But anyways, yeah, anything else you wanna like I guess share, or just anything that you wanna promote at the moment without breaking NDA?
Uh,
Yeah, because
I don't
that's the
really,
tricky thing.
yeah,
That's the catch. Yeah.
don't really have anything that's not still an NDA, but just recently, if people hadn't caught it, the Tale of Food, which is a gotcha game by the Hansi game company that just came out in Western release on mobile, and I think Steam as well, but definitely mobile. And I play uh, Dingu's Veggie and Cabbage, at least Cabbage is the name that I was given when I was recording him. I don't know if they changed the name because they changed Veggie's name um, from when I was recording him. But I play those two characters. Um, uh, if you want to check out Friends Forever Stranded's pilot on YouTube, you can just search Best Friends Forever Stranded, and just tell everybody everywhere how much you like it online, because hopefully it'll gets picked up if enough people talk about it. But yeah, those are really the big things at the moment. Uh, and hopefully I'll be coming back for more stuff this season for anime, and I'll let you know when I post online.
Yeah. Any last piece of advice that you want to close us out on?
If um like mental health is a big thing right now, and it's something that everybody needs to be aware of, because the pandemic kind of killed everybody's mental health a little bit. And so just be good to yourself, and try to make time for yourself, because there's not enough time in the world for everything, and you are just as important as the other things you're trying to get done.
Right on. Yeah, wouldn't have said it any better myself. So thank you, Josh, for being here, and thank you everybody for tuning in. And stay tuned for more Station Square in the next episode. And until then, have a good one. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay positive. And remember, punch every day in the face. Wow. Peace.